Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. My name is Art and I'm your host. I have a great guest planned for today to kick things off for this new season. I'll be interviewing Brendan Slocumb. He's an author and musician and just wrote a book called The Violin Conspiracy. I read that last month and absolutely fell in love with this story. And I wanted to have Brendan on to talk about his novel and the stories that music can tell. A little bit about the book. It was published just this year in February. It was a Good Morning America book club pick. What is this book about? Ray McMillan is a black classical musician on the rise, undeterred by the pressure and prejudice of the classical music world, when a shocking theft sends him on a desperate quest to recover his great-great-grandfather's heirloom violin on the eve of the most prestigious musical competition in the world. And it is a little bit of a mystery, but it's not like a murder mystery. It's more of a who stole it kind of thing. His Stradivarius violin that he inherited from his great-great-grandfather goes missing. And it's this ongoing drama between him, the supposed original owners of this violin, and it just explores issues like race and what it's like for a black musician to try to make it in the classical music world. And from what I've read online, Brendan weaves into the story events that actually happened to him as a musician. So I hope to learn more about his story and his journey that brought him to this point. But before we get to the interview, I want to bring up a book recommendation. I decided to start reading some of the books that my guests recommend, and then to do a follow-up to talk about my impressions of the book. So the first one I decided to pick is It Rained Warm Bread. The story is by Gloria Moskowitz-Sweet, and the poems are by Hope Anita Smith with some beautiful illustrations by Leah Lyon. And Nancy Churnin, who I interviewed in the last episode, this was one of her book recommendations, and it really sounded intriguing to me. I like to read about World War II history, and this seemed to be right in my wheelhouse. Now, I believe I've shared on here before some of my struggles with poetry, that it is a type of literature that I really am not sure I'm always understanding. That's part of why I wanted to pick this book, is because I'm wanting to learn how to read poetry and to understand it better. And this was such a perfect choice for that, because it's written like a narrative poem, but it's so beautifully written, so heartfelt. You get the sense of the agony, the fear, the despair, and really the undying hope through it all, as it follows the story of Moishe and his experience of the Holocaust and seeing his entire family brutally killed, and the impact that had on him, and how he never gave up hope, even in the midst of a very, very hopeless situation. These poems have some of the most beautiful sentences I've ever read in my life. And I guess this is actually written for a young adult audience, which is probably why I found it easier to understand. Not to discredit young adult readers at all. Things were just a little more simply put, but that does not discredit this book at all, because the powerful emotional punch is there. So the book has 7 chapters in it, and it talks about the lead up to the Holocaust, his experiences in it, and then a little bit of the aftermath of it. And what is neat is he describes the Nazis as wolves, and that the wolves are coming closer, and the wolves are at the door, and then the wolves are feeding, and all this illustration of what the Nazis did to the Jewish people in Poland, where he lived. Gloria Moskowitz is Moishe's daughter, I believe, and she told his story to the poet Hope Anita Smith, who I want to read more of her poems. This was just so good. Hope Anita Smith wrote them down in poetry form, and I think perhaps her experiences really helped bring out the story of Moishe. I like the opening poem. It's called It Matters. Let me just read an excerpt of this. It says, "It matters which side of the street I walk on to get home. There's their side and the safe side, the only side that gets me home, the same way my mother sent me out. It matters that my eyes are watching, scanning the neighborhood for thirsty Polish boys who drink Jews like water, wanting to pound me like schnitzel. It matters that I have learned the politics of life. Know enough to find 2 Goliaths to protect me. My contribution? Homework assignments worthy of a good grade. My teacher gives us an exercise. Write something that has meaning. Use your shovel. Dig deep. I want to say something important. Something that will last. Something that says I was here. I write my name. Moishe Moskowitz. I matter. And that's just the opening poem. It is so powerful. The power of identity. Because later on in the story, Moishe will be talking about how the Nazis tattooed a number on his arm, and they referred to him now as a number, and they're trying to take away his identity. But he is firm in reminding himself that my name is Moishe, and it matters, and I matter. And that ties in so beautifully with the ongoing theme of where there's life, there's hope. And he brings up that line throughout the story. Another one of the early poems in the book has a really profound sentence in it. Moishe talks about the suffering he experienced and the mocking he experienced from Polish boys. And it says, I had a hatred for Poles and all things Polish. They destroyed our property, burned our homes, and every Friday Catholic boys lie in wait to smear pork fat on our faces as we walk home to prepare for Shabbat. My father wipes my face and says, it's not the best thing, Moishe. But if this is the worst thing, it's not so bad. And I don't know why, but that statement, it's not the best thing, but if this is the worst thing, it's not so bad. That's a statement that really has just been rattling around my brain lately, especially when I experience difficulties, which I'll be honest, I have had nowhere near the amount of difficulties that Moishe has. I don't want you to think that I'm trying to compare myself to a Holocaust survivor. Okay, but there are times in my day and my life I hit struggles, I hit difficulties, things don't go the way I plan. It's frustrating. And I think I got to remind myself that yes, this is not the best thing. But if this is the worst thing I'm experiencing, then it's not so bad. So this just enlightened me to a culture and a worldview that honestly I do not fully understand. And I don't know if I can understand the full trauma of all that the Jewish people went through during the Holocaust, and even continues today to acts of racism and hatred and all the terrible things we're seeing in the news today of acts of hatred and violence against others because, they don't look like me. And that's wrong. So from the very first poem, with just that plea of him realizing my name matters and my voice matters and I matter, the stories matter and your story matters. And so I would love to hear your story. If you have written a story, if you have had an experience, the story of your life, share that. And your story is a powerful one, and words have power. Stories have power. And that's something I talk about a lot on my podcast, is the power of words, the power of stories. And this book it just really sums up everything I think about that. So I want to say thank you to Nancy for recommending this. This book will leave you in tears by the end, but it is well worth the read. Again, it's called It Rained Warm Bread, and it tells the story of Moishe Moskowitz's survival of the Holocaust. And the poetry is written by Hope Anita Smith, and it's the most beautiful poetry I think I've ever read. So well worth your time. So that's my book recommendation for today. So now, without any further ado, let's head up to the podcast interview studio, such as it is, and we'll have our interview with Brendan Slocumb, author of The Violin Conspiracy. I have a very special guest on our podcast today. I'm with author Brendan Slocumb. He has just written the recently published book, The Violin Conspiracy, which I read about a month or two ago and absolutely loved it. And I knew I had to have him on our podcast if I could catch him. So, Brendan, welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast.
Thank you so much, Art. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. I was telling you before we hit record, I came across your book on another podcast. I think it was the Book Talk, etc. podcast, and they were talking about it and how much they enjoyed it. And I thought, oh, that sounds right up my alley. It's a story. It's a bit of a mystery, but it's not like I read a lot of murder mysteries, but this one is more of a who stole it kind of mystery. And the main character, Ray, he has inherited a valuable violin, a Stradivarius, and as he's preparing for a major music competition, it gets stolen. And the story is partly his search for it, but also his journey into music and into what he experiences, the struggles he faces to get where he was, is in the book.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend it. I'm going to talk a little bit about it in a review on this episode, but it's just a wonderful book, and I am fully expecting this will be one of my top 10 favorites of the year. So thank you, Brendan, for writing that. It was a marvelous book.
Well, you probably can't tell, but I'm really blushing from all of that praise. It's in there. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I got to butter you up before the gotcha questions. So no, no. But I like to start off learning a little bit more about our guests, and the best way I see that is asking you, what is your favorite book that you've ever read?
Okay, so I've been asked that question before, and people look at me like I have three heads when I give them my answers. I have a few favorites.
Perfect.
I'm a comic book guy. I have been since I was 15. But the book that stands out to me the most is the Epic of Gilgamesh. I absolutely loved it, and I think I end up rereading it like once a year just because I think it's just a fantastic book. It's got everything. It's got fantasy and fighting, and it's just a guy's book, and I love it. I've always loved it.
Yeah, no, that's an older book.
Yeah.
I think one of the oldest that we have on that survived, I think, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and if I remember right, I think I've read it at least once. Isn't that like a flood myth in there too, and all that stuff? Is that the right one I'm thinking of?
Got
Yeah,
it all.
got it all.
Everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
Oh well, perfect. Well, you said you like comic books. What kind of comic books you like? All of them or specific?
Pretty much all of them. I've been collecting comic books since I was 15 years old,
Mhm.
and you name it, I got it. Like I have a to be read pile on my desk here. I got Fantastic Four and X-Men and Avengers and Batman and Superman and Justice League, and and I'm here in my office, and these are my comic books stacked up to the
Oh
ceiling
wow.
here, and behind me you can see my action figures.
Yep.
So nice and neatly arranged. So I'm a huge comic guy, and it really comics really got me into reading as a youngster. I would read a comic and there would be a word I'd never seen or never even heard of, didn't know how to pronounce, and I would go back to the dictionary before internet, and I would look it up. It's like, whoa, this is a real word. So there's actual learning taking place with me reading these comics. This is quite educational, and the stories are good and the artwork is good, and it's just a good time all around.
So, in the big question of MC or it's the MCU or DC, which one do you fall on?
Wow, they both have some really 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 good things going on. I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one. I
Okay,
will
okay.
say that Zack Snyder's Justice League, that 4 hour cut, one of the best movies I've ever seen. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was much better than the original for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I always say I have enough room for both, so I like characters from both. So
That's a good answer. I'm gonna start using that one.
there you go. Um, all right. Well, so far your answers are good. You're
Oh,
to these questions. But let's talk a little bit about your book, The Violin Conspiracy. Now, this is a story of a musician, which apparently that's in your background, or that's your job, I guess, by day, I
yeah,
suppose, right?
yeah.
So, how did you? I was going to ask, how did you go from being a musician to a writer? But maybe we should even start with your origin story. How did you get into music?
See, I love this comic book reference stuff, the
There you
origin
are.
story. It's
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, Art, you and I, we're going to be good friends. I can see that now.
Excellent.
Um,
Excellent.
I started playing violin when I was 9 through a public school music program, and I absolutely loved it. It was originally just to get out of class 2 days a week in fifth grade, and hey, yeah, I'll do it. I love not being in class. This is good stuff. And it was fun, and I took to it, and my teachers saw that there was something there, and they encouraged me. And as I'm moving around, I'm still in the same county, but I'm moving around different schools. I had a bunch of different teachers, and they each encouraged me just to keep playing. And I absolutely loved it. In my senior year in high school, my teacher said, you need to audition at University of North Carolina and go for music education. Didn't know what it was, didn't care, and said, okay, this might be an opportunity for me to go to college. I had zero aspirations to go to college otherwise, and this was my ticket in. And I auditioned, I got in, and I found the teacher who taught me how to play the violin, and she taught me how to teach, and the rest is history. And referring back to the book a little bit, one of the main characters in the book is Dr. Janice Stevens, who is Ray's primary violin teacher. I modeled Dr. Janice Stevens after my violin teacher, Dr. Rachel Vetter Huang, and I wanted to pay tribute to her in this book. And I hope that came through in the writing, because she was inspirational in everything that I've done. She's the reason that I'm here right now.
Yeah, I think it does. Their scenes together and their relationship was just one of my favorite parts of the book. That was really, really moving. Just her constant support of him. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my teacher.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, and shout out too to public school teachers. My son is currently in a music education program in college, and he loved music. And when he went to high school, he wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do and had some ideas, but they saw his ability to be able to play, and they really just gave him every opportunity to use it. And so now that really gave him direction and focus on his future. So
it's a life-saving thing. It really is.
Yeah. You're so as you're a violinist, you're teaching music. What inspired you to write this book?
Summer of 2020, COVID-19. COVID was 2020 was just so messed up for everyone for so many reasons, not just here in the US, but across the world. And as a teacher, no school, no lessons, no rehearsals, no weddings, no receptions, no recitals, nothing. And as a working musician, that's how I made my income. Everything was taken away. And it gave me a huge opportunity to begin writing again. I was sitting on the couch eating, getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And I saw an advertisement for selling books in the age of COVID. Now, I'd written a manuscript about almost 20 years ago, and I submitted it. Hey, why not? I'm not doing anything else. I got a notice back. I said, whoa, this is absolutely terrible. But you've got a good voice, so you should try writing something that and it's definitely not science fiction. I was like, okay, I'm a musician. So I wrote a little bit of the Violin Conspiracy, which was originally going to be, it was heading in the direction of a YA book. And the agent was like, yeah, you know what, this is good. You've got a really good voice. You should do this. I said, okay. So I literally sat down every day starting July 29th, and I wrote 2,000 words a day until I finished the book. And I was done in like 2 months. And that's the only good thing that came out of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm finding a lot of good things have come. I mean, for you, but you have a story similar to others that said, well, I was at home bored, so I did this, something I always wanted to try, and some good things are coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in the story, as I mentioned, the main character, Ray, he has this violin that's a Stradivarius, which, I'm not a musician necessarily, but I love music, and I recognize that as a very valuable violin. And then as the story unfolds, we find out that there's a family that claims ownership to this violin. And what I appreciate about this story then is it's not just a, oh, where'd my violin go kind of story, but now you're exploring issues like race and racism and slavery even, as we find out his great great grandfather was given this violin from his former owner, or was he? That's the whole kind of one of the mysteries at the heart of the story.
Mhm.
Tapping into such powerful storylines, this must have been an emotional journey for you.
Believe it or not, a lot of it was. I really wanted to add some aspects of history. I wanted everything to be as accurate as possible, not just to kind of throw out, because we hear
Mm.
slavery. Okay, this is a slavery book. This is what happened during. Okay, we normally get America had slaves, black people picked cotton, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and that's all we get. I can speak for myself. That's all I got in high school and elementary school.
Mm.
So I really wanted to throw in some elements of realism and authenticity. So when I was doing my research, it was there's one chapter, I believe it's chapter 33, where young Nora is writing a letter, and it is just, I mean, it's very graphic as to what actually took place during slavery, and a lot of people just had no idea. It's just kind of, oh well, it's just one of those things that happen, and then we kind of move on. And the goal wasn't to bring social awareness to anyone over the sins of the past or anything. It was just to write an interesting story, and that just happened to be one of the elements, and I wanted to make it as authentic as possible. And I know for some people it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's definitely worth reading and sitting through. It opens minds, I think. And emotionally, it really was. There were some really cathartic scenes for me to write because a lot of these things happen to me in real life. So getting to put them down on a page and have them validated, that was very, very cathartic. So yeah, the emotional toll, some were heavier than others, but I think it was all worthwhile.
This is another thing I enjoyed. I don't know, enjoy is a strange word to use, I think, but just this is the time it made me angry. I'm reading it, I'm getting angry at this poor kid who, gets pulled over for no reason, who is facing racism in the orchestra and things like that. And then finding out that some of those were your experiences and things. And it's just like, oh, I'm so angry at this, which I think is good. But, that's one of my takeaways there is that we got to do better, as a society. And how can we do that? Well, it'll
Well,
start with me, but
just I have always said it starts with an acknowledgement. I have people, friends of mine, who've known me for years and years and years. After reading this book, they have come up to me and apologized. Like, why are you apologizing to me? Just because of everything that you've had to go through and the way that people have treated you? It's like, no, an apology is not necessary. You did nothing to me. You, as a person, have done absolutely nothing to me. You've been a great friend, and I've got nothing but support. But instead of people, offering apologies, it starts with an acknowledgement. Yeah, things are different for different people. My perspective is different from your perspective on the way things are. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just different. A lot of times when I would tell my friends when these events were happening, like the wedding scene and the being pulled over in Baton Rouge, which actually really did happen, and I've made a pledge never to go back to Baton Rouge, although I'm softening on that stance a little bit. The only difference is I did not go to jail like Ray did in the story, but it really starts with an acknowledgement that things are different. It's just a different perspective, and when people tell you, when you give them your perspective on what happened, this is what happened to me, I would always get, no, you're just exaggerated. Oh, things like that don't happen. No, 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 no. You're looking at it the wrong way. But seeing people's reaction, when they read the instances in the story, getting that validation, like, oh wow, things like this really do happen. I never thought that something like this could happen. Now my eyes have been open. That makes everything worthwhile. And I kind of look at myself as a conduit for change, so that people who were completely unaware now have a different perspective on how things are for lots of people.
the past couple of years have been kind of an eye opener, honestly, just to be honest, for me,
Mhm.
and realizing, man, my perspective is not the only one there is. And, my experiences aren't, I need to maybe be quiet and listen more. That's just kind of where I came down. And that's been helpful to me, just to be deliberate and making those moments to listen.
Mhm.
see if I can't understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. I
Um,
really like hearing people say that. A lot of people after having read the story, they were like, whoa, same thing. My eyes have really been open. I never would have thought, it never would have occurred to me that things like this happen, and why are they happening? And am I guilty of doing this? And, they take a second look, and that's a win-win.
one of my favorite authors is Charles Dickens, and I somehow always bring the discussions back to him. So, but what you're talking about is how Dickens would write. He would tell of the experiences that people were suffering through, and some of them he experienced as a child that he kept hidden. But and then people would read that and say, "Oh, I didn't know that that they suffered through that." But yeah, it's storytelling is a powerful medium
Mhm.
to bring awareness to those situations.
It's very safe too. It's a safe way to do it, and
Yeah.
hey, that's how we get it. That's how we get it done.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to talk also a little bit about music. I like stories, and there's all kinds of mediums that you can tell stories through. Comic books, novels, documentaries, whatever. But music tells a story too. This might be a really broad question, but how does music tell a story? Or is that a whole semester of?
Whoa, that's like a year long. That's a seminar.
Yeah, I thought maybe, but uh,
I think music is one of the best tools for storytelling. I honestly do. You have the person, the composer, whoever's written the music, they've got their own story to tell. And then you've got the interpretation of that story via the conductor. And then you've got the implementation of the story via the musicians. There's so many aspects to music being a form of storytelling. And, for me, music is it's one of those things. It is the story music tells for me it's a journey that we're constantly traveling. We're always going, we're always learning. I can listen to the same piece of music, and I have listened to the same piece of music a million times by 100 different composers or different orchestras playing the same piece, and I hear something different every single time. And it's just a nonstop roller coaster, and it's a ride that I just don't want to get off of, and it's fantastic. And this is why I'm such a huge music education advocate, because it can literally take you places that you'd never even imagined. So I am a huge, huge, huge advocate, and I think it is a crime to deny people the right to experience music the way that that we have.
mm. Now you have taught a lot of young people music, correct? And have
Yes.
have you seen a positive impact in their life through that?
Oh
And
my goodness.
can you share any of those stories of how you?
How much time do we have? Yeah. I don't know that this interview is that long, but yeah,
No, no,
absolutely.
I don't know.
No, I've been a public school music teacher. I'm not currently teaching in a public school now, just because I'm writing a lot more. And I've taught for 25 years in the classroom, public, private, high school, elementary, middle school. Yeah, and just seeing the kids go from I don't even know how to pronounce the name of this instrument to I'm going to stand up and perform in front of a bunch of people, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to be proud of what it is that I've done. Just the confidence, just the opening. It gives them an opening. I've had kids who have been so shy that they wouldn't even look you in the eye, and then they sit down and start playing, and they turn into a whole nother person. You see these personalities coming out. It builds so much confidence. It builds technique. It gives you work ethic. I've seen kids, who, teachers have said, oh, that kid is so much trouble. I can get him out of your class if you want. He's just a troublemaker. And he's an angel for me, does everything that he's supposed to do and is happy to do it, and will do his best to make sure that everyone else does the right things too. Music brings out the best in people. And, I've got 25 years worth of success stories with kids. I don't have a giant group of kids who have gone on to be professional musicians, but all of them still enjoy music. They will still hear a piece by Shostakovich and say, even 20 years later, I played that when I was in high school. I know exactly what that is. That's a Shostakovich. What are you talking about? How do you know that? That's what I did. This is I'm well-rounded. And just seeing the confidence that it the confidence that it gives the kids, growing into adulthood, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I am so proud of all of my students. And it's been a blessing for me to be able to teach them that way.
Yeah, and I've seen what you say, like even in my own kids as they explore music, and it just captures them in a way that nothing else has, to be honest. And yeah, it's a powerful tool to. And my wife has read some things about the benefits it does to your mental health, to your school test scores, things like that. And we like to say, Mozart makes you smart. You listen to Mozart, you'll. Well,
it's the honest truth. It really is. Mozart's the first classical musician I ever heard. I heard Mozart number 40, his Symphony 40, when I was in third grade, and it changed my life.
When I was young, I took about a year of piano lessons, and right before that, I found a record of Van Cliburn at the Tchaikovsky competition, I think it was actually, and I was just blown away. I'm like, wow, this is what you can do on a piano. That's amazing. And I guess you have to have some talent too, but
maybe a little bit,
a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, that, so there was like a 8-year-old kid checking out the stacks of classical music records from the library, and my parents looking at me weird, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, it comes with the territory. Yeah.
And unfortunately we moved around a lot, and then I didn't have a teacher, and I just kind of lost interest after a while. It is one of those things I regret, is that I never took those lessons again. So
well, never too late.
Now that's what my son says. He's like, Dad, I can teach you. You're never too late. So
I actually have a 65-year-old student and who's a pilot I will fly with him anytime. I always look for him whenever I'm flying. So are you flying to this? And he's a fantastic student. He's like, I've always wanted to do this. And I mean, he's just taken off. It's great. Taking off. He's a pilot. Look at that. Oh, it's terrible puns.
That's all right. We got dad jokes here. That's good.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So then I asked you what your favorite book was. Now I got to ask you, do you have a favorite piece of music that you love to listen to?
That's an even longer conversation. I love so much stuff. People ask me my favorite composer, my favorite piece of music. There's just so many things to choose from. I'm actually going to say my favorite piece of music. Being a violinist, a solo piece, I'm a huge Vivaldi fan, and I love the Four Seasons. I've actually performed 3 of the 4. I've never done Autumn. I don't have a desire to. It's not my favorite one. But I think Summer, Four Seasons by Vivaldi is probably my favorite piece. And one of my favorite symphonies is by the Czech composer Antonín Dvořák. I've got a huge poster of Dvořák, a painting of Dvořák in my living room that every time I walk in, I look at him and he's looking at me like, did you practice? I'm like, all right, I'm going right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like Beethoven. I mean, that's like that was my introduction to classical music, was through listening to Beethoven and Van Cliburn playing Beethoven, and it's so I have an emotional attachment there, and especially as a teenager, I liked his bombacity, and the loud and driving. And I was probably a big nerd when I was a teenager, as everyone's jamming out to rock music, and I'm over here with, Beethoven blasting in my earphones, and okay.
That we have that in common. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or crank up the Jupiter from the planets, that when you get real loud, that'll get you going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mars too. Yeah. It's like, whoa, who's about to fight? Yeah. This is good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I got to take my my oldest son to the Omaha Symphony, I think, a couple years ago now, and they were playing the planets, and we got to hear it live, and that was so good. Oh
yeah, it's fun to play too. It's great piece of music. Gustav Holst, great piece.
Yeah, it's something about live music even versus hearing it on your earphones or something. Yeah. It's a whole other dynamic, but
it really is.
Yeah, well, this is turning into a music podcast now. But
whoops, sorry about that.
All right.
I did write a book.
Yeah. Okay. Well, back to the book a little bit. I don't want to give away the ending at all, but I was actually a little surprised by your ending, and maybe I'll ask off camera, but or I'll just delete this part out or put up a spoiler warning. But I was surprised he didn't win first place. I thought that's where the book was heading, and then he got second. And I'm like, oh, well, that's different. But Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of why didn't he win? Why didn't he win? I'm like, well, he did win. He made it that far. He did win. He wasn't even playing with the. This probably spoilers all around. He wasn't even playing with his own instrument. The fact that he made it as far as he did, just off of his talent, I think that is a win. And winning doesn't necessarily mean coming in first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes we fail to recognize that, and we put so much emphasis on what other people see and what other people think in terms of what we do. The fact that he made it to that competition, to the stage, to compete with the best in the world, that is a win in my book and in Ray's book as well. So he really was a winner.
Well, I liked it because it made me think, okay, why did he do this? Because, dare I say it's a cliche almost that, he'd struggle through all these challenges and, oh, he wins first place. Yay. And that's kind of the predictable ending. Not that it's not a good ending, but that just made me think, okay, well, what's actually the point I'm being told here? And I think some of what you said were my thoughts there that, he made it that far.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not nothing, and Ray as the character never expressed, frustration that, oh, I got second. He was very happy with what he got and
Oh yeah,
seemed very
absolutely.
satisfied with his ending. So that made me think too about, the challenges to push yourself to be better and to do better and to work at it. And, second place at the Tchaikovsky competition, that's not an insignificant achievement.
Not at all. Not at all. That I think it's a huge achievement, and I kind of went back and forth with my agent on that particular aspect, whether or not
Mm.
Ray was going to come in first or not. And it there's just so much going on in Ray's life, and disappointment is a huge part of his story in the Violin Conspiracy, and not necessarily disappointment because he didn't come in first, but he learned this is not something that I should be ashamed of. This is not something that I'm going to, lament about because I didn't come in first place. I did the work, I did my best, and that's all that counts. That's really what matters. And I did that. I achieved it, and let's keep going forward.
Well, speaking of going forward, what are
Oh,
your future plans?
that was good. Um, I am writing a lot more. I literally this week got the approval that my second book, my final revisions have been accepted. So my second book will go to print very soon. I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that. And I'm going to start writing my third novel in September. I'm going to take August off and just kind of recoup. And I start on my third book in September, and it's crazy exciting. And I'm really interested to see what people are going to think about my next book, which is it's going to be called Symphony of Secrets. There's that music thing going on in it. It's a great story, some great characters, and it's a departure from what I did with the Violin Conspiracy. So I hope people accept it. And I've often been asked, so is this going to be a continuation, or are there characters that are going to be from the Violin Conspiracy? Um, what I do with each book that I'm going to write is I put one Easter egg from the previous book into the next one. So there is a main character named a main character in the Violin Conspiracy in the last chapter who will be a main character in Symphony of Secrets. And I'm going to recommend that everybody reread the last chapter before they pick up Symphony of Secrets, and it'll all tie in together, and it's good stuff. And I'm really excited, and I probably shouldn't be this happy, but I am.
So in about 5 or 6 books, then you'll have an Avenger style meetup of all these musicians. And
Totally. In a parallel universe, that's where it's all coming together.
well, I also like to ask our guests, what have you read lately that you would recommend to us to read?
Wow. Okay. So I'm just going to preface this by saying I haven't had I only get to read when I can read all the way through with no stops, because I'm not one to start one and then go back a week later, and that's just not my thing. Back when I was teaching, I would always read during the summer. I'd read like 8 books during the summer, and I just so I just I'm going to go in reverse order. I literally finished. This is a fantastic book. It's called Karma, and it's probably backwards on the screen. Karma by Michael Albee, and it's wonderful. Just on the back, the disclaimer is, if you've received this book, it means someone cares about you a whole awful lot. Mental health issues are skyrocketing. Suicide, domestic violence, eating disorders, drug abuse, an undertow of infirmity infiltrating life. It's too short. Live, be kind, pay it forward, be curious, have ideas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a combination superhero, mental health, it's got everything. And if you've ever just been sad or think that maybe I just need to do something different, this is the book for you. It is a wonderful, wonderful book. Michael Albee's Karma. I finished A Little Devil in America by Hanif Abdurraqib, and that to this day is one of my favorite books. It's about Black culture, but being a Black guy, it's like, okay, I know about Black culture. No, 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 no. Things that I just would have I had no idea. Things that you thought you knew about Whitney Houston. Oh, no, 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 no. And one of my absolute favorite sections in the book is where he's mentioning a Rolling Stones song. I'm not a Rolling Stones fan, but there was a song that Mary Clayton sang on. I forget what the name of the song is, but just, Mick Jagger was thinking one thing, Mary Clayton was thinking something else. And just, I mean, it's mind blowing. I literally stopped as I was reading and I went and Googled her and I Googled the song and I was like, what? I mean, it was mind blowing. I'm currently reading Nickel Boys by my favorite Colson Whitehead right now. And right after that, I'm going to pick up The Lioness by Chris Bojalian, who is my personal hero. I want to be him when I grow up, just because he is phenomenal. His books are incredible. People, if you haven't read his books, you've probably seen one of the shows that he's done. The Flight Attendant is amazing on HBO, and he's a great, great, great guy. And he's a huge hero of mine. And what else am I reading? I think that's about it that I've got in this pile. Yeah.
Other than comic books and they're coming out your ears, it looks like. So
they definitely are. This is my TBR comic pile. This is it right here.
Oh wow.
It's huge. I got a lot to read.
Yeah. I tried to get into comics when I was younger, but it just seemed like there's just too many and I didn't know where to start. So I was just content to watching the movies that came out. So
yeah, well, it's funny when you actually read the comic and most of the storyline from the movie goes along with it. It's exciting until they deviate just a little bit. And you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. That's new. And it keeps it exciting and fresh. So I like being able to at least have a build up to know, like whoever I go to the movies with, oh yeah. Watch, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. This is going to be great. Watch this. Yeah. It's really important. So yeah. Pick up a comic and just start anywhere. Pick up an X-Men.
Jump in. Yeah. Okay, just jump in. And then also like to ask about writing tips. If you're a relatively new writer yourself, but is there any tip you'd share with anyone who's wanting to get started at writing?
I'm going to share the advice that I have been given, and it's been fantastic advice. I have been told to write often, write honestly, and write what you know. If you don't believe it, how can you have someone else believe it? And don't be afraid to take critiques and criticisms. If someone says, to me, this is blah, 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 take it. If you can take something from what it is that they say, take it. If you can't, just put it away. Just don't take it personally. We sometimes forget that as writers that we write for our audiences, not for our critics. And if you are constantly trying to change things to satisfy one or two people, you're never going to be authentic, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So write often, write honestly, and don't be afraid to take critiques.
All right.
I hope that helps.
Good advice. Yeah, I'm thinking of all the times my wife or someone has edited some of my writing for different things I've done, and it's like, oh, look at all that red ink on the paper.
It's a bad feeling, I know. Yeah,
I'm the worst. Oh,
imagine how I felt when the first time when I turned in a draft and I get entire chapters cut, and I'm like, oh, this is hard. What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Yeah. So yeah.
Well, one thing I'm learning is, just about everybody gets edited, and it's necessary, to really make a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Even my podcast, I edit it sometimes. So
yeah. It was a learning process for me. I literally took everything personally. Oh, he hated this part, man.
Yeah.
I'm a failure, but yeah. I got
Yeah,
over it
just
real quick.
got to get over it. Yeah, yeah. And then I like to, for the final question, I like to ask, and we kind of danced around this question already, but when did you discover that words have power? Or in your case, music. You could go either way. I'll let you do either one or both.
Wow, that is a fantastic question. When did I learn that? Very early on, unfortunately, with in the case of words, you know, I've had so many experiences with people who say terrible things. Sometimes they say these things intentionally to cause pain. Other times it's they just are completely unaware and it goes over their heads. Um, that's when I realized, when someone gave me, I think it was an offhanded, backwards compliment. I was playing at some function, and I was one of the only Black people there. And someone comes up to me and says, you play a lot better than I thought you would. And I'm just like, okay, what am I supposed to say? Do I say thank you? I don't get it. I went to the same schools that everyone else did, and I'm not sure what that means, but okay. So just a lot of times people are unaware that their words carry a lot of I don't know what the word. A lot of words can have a tremendous effect on you, whether you want them to or not. So just my advice is to tell a lot of people to be very aware of your situation and what it is that you're saying and how you mean to say it, and don't be mad if someone gets offended over it is what you say. Ask why. Why did this offend you? I want to know so I don't make the same mistake again. Music is the most powerful force in the world. It's the most powerful, life-changing force in the world. It's the only thing that you can go across the world, not speak the language, and have an instant connection with someone. And it's just a powerful, powerful tool that like I mentioned earlier, it would be a crime to keep people away from it. So I'm a huge advocate for music everywhere, all the time, in your face. Boom.
Yeah. So quit cutting the music department budget, everyone.
Yes, yes. Email and call your arts department people. Yes, please do.
Yes. Yeah. My wife's been volunteering at the school in the music department, and um, what is the Fine Arts Booster Club or something, trying to help do
Mhm.
fundraising and stuff. And yeah, it's a struggle.
It's
So
always a struggle. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
always
there.
said, I was talking to friends of mine. I'm sorry, I digress just a bit.
Oh, that's
Back when
fine.
The Apprentice was a show, I was talking with a
Mhm.
friend of mine, and they're like, oh, they have to learn how to raise money. We could do that in an instant. We are so accustomed as music teachers to making things happen with zero money. We find a way to make it happen. And my hat goes off to anyone who does anything in the arts, teachers, fundraising, boosters, supporters, anything. So keep it up, you guys.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you, Brendan, for coming on. Thank you for writing such a wonderful book and sharing it with the world. Really had an impact on me, and I'm looking forward to your next books coming out
Wow.
soon.
Thank
So
you very
thank you.
much, Art. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much for this honor. Appreciate
You
it.
you bet. And for everyone watching or listening, links to these books will be down in the show notes. So go ahead and check them out. You can help support Brendan that way. So all right, Brendan, thank you,
Thank
and
you.
best of luck to you.
All right.
So thanks again for watching, or if you're on the podcast, for listening. And also check out the show notes, as I'll leave links for all the books we've talked about and how you can contact and interact with Brendan online. In the meantime, let me know what you're reading. You can contact me on all of my social media accounts. I'm pretty much everywhere. Or you can email me at bookshelfodysseypodcast@gmail.com and let me know what you're reading. I'm always looking to add to my TBR list. Until next time, thanks again for joining me on my Bookshelf Odyssey. And I just want to remind you that words have power and you should share yours. Take care.